そうですね、もうおっしゃる通り2つの要素を合わせたものです。
The Last Guardian is a combination of the core elements from Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, like companionship and large entities, but I'm adding situations I couldn't have before. In Eco, Yorda was a human, or human-like, so there were certain things I couldn't do, and in Shadow, the Colossi were enemies, which meant certain aspects couldn't materialize. But now, those restrictions are lifted, and I'm looking into doing new things. I can't say yet which, the boy or the creature, is the Last Guardian, but we called it the Last Guardian to leave it open for multiple interpretations. The creature's tail can be called a major element of the game. In order to proceed, you'll need to make use of it. That's all I can say for now. I'm not really going for an emotion in The Last Guardian, but I really want to express the mystical nature of animals.
You have a great quote that I'm going to paraphrase where you said you used to play games in languages you didn't understand and like figuring them out was half the fun. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would get overseas DVDs and watch them in a language I'm not familiar with. It doesn't work with very complex stories, but for an easy plot, I can get a feeling. From the acting, the direction, the sets, I'd get the message. I think it's actually a pure form of enjoyment of a film through that sort of osmosis.
You worked on Enemy Zero with Warp, and what was that? What did you do there, and what was that like working on such an odd game?
I was a CG animator for Enemy Zero, but I didn't have any involvement with the game design. However, what I did learn from the experience is that you can make games that aren't like games. Kind of out of the box. Specifically with how you can use music or sound, the idea that you don't always need background music, or sound can replace visuals, as in Enemy Zero. There's a couple of reasons behind dropping multiplayer between Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. First, looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the staff, we didn't have anyone familiar with network programming, so we decided to focus on single player. At that time, I had high expectations for network play. Now my expectations are not as high. Multiplayer games ask for a large time commitment, but right now I'm more interested in providing the maximum emotion and heart-moving experience, and actually communicate something through the game that doesn't take so much time.
Where do you see drawing the line between artistic merit and technical expertise?
That's a very difficult question. I think that, at least with Shadow of the Colossus, we didn't really sacrifice the playability of the game, but there are areas where we prioritized the visual direction and forfeited the frame rate a bit. I think it really depends on the style of the game. If it's an action game that will require strict operations, then the frame rate needs to be there.
So were you upset with the frame rate in the final Colossus battle?
I guess I am a little disappointed. If it were possible, I would have improved it, but at that point I had to choose one, art or frames, and I don't regret the decision.
Which was your favorite Colossus?
Actually, the first Colossus has a special place in my heart. It's the first Colossus the player interacts with, comes up against, so in terms of impact and ease with which the player can defeat him, well, I put a lot of attention and time on him. I don't think I'll ever be satisfied with the available technology. That being said, the PS3 is a big improvement for expression and visual information that can be incorporated, but because the capabilities have increased, the things I want to do have increased proportionately as well. On the other hand, I do enjoy trying to work within constraints, and trying to express the best expressions within the limitations, and convey the idea within those constraints. There are no specific plans for the motion controller, but I do have some interest.
What do you think the future of digital storytelling is going to be like?
Unless someone comes up with a revolutionary way to change storytelling in games, I think what I'm doing now, like eliminating words and dialogue from a game or placing constraints in order to heighten expressions, is the only way for digital storytelling to proceed. I don't consider myself a minimalist. Like I said before, the reason my titles have come out the way they have is that I'm trying to combine reality and surrealism with storytelling, and the only way I can really achieve this effectively is by eliminating, for example, words. If there's some way I can express surreality and storytelling by having characters appear and talk lively and be equally effective in the created reality, I do that. So with Shadow of the Colossus tying back to Ico, it just sort of happened that way, the loose connection. With The Last Guardian, I'm still not sure how it's going to end up, but in terms of an interconnection between the games, I'm not sure it's even possible because the game's story is different from the previous two.